The story begins in a London sewer, where Arthur and George are conducting a detailed inspection. As they move through the tunnels, they hear what sounds like a woman's scream, but Arthur dismisses it as an echo. Continuing their inspection, Arthur is startled when he discovers a hole leading to a new corridor. He insists that, despite working in these tunnels for over 20 years, he has never seen this passage before. The water level inside is high, and visibility is poor. Arthur carefully moves forward with his flashlight. As the beam of light sweeps across the tunnel, it briefly illuminates what looks like a person. After some time, George starts to worry when Arthur doesn't respond to his calls. Thinking his colleague might be playing a prank, he reluctantly steps into the tunnel to look for him. That's when he hears a woman scream, this time loud and clear. George finds Arthur lying on the ground, frozen in shock. When he asks what happened, Arthur is too terrified to respond. Suddenly, a girl, appearing injured and terrified, emerges from the darkness. She lets out one final scream before being violently pulled away. Meanwhile, we meet Kate, a young German woman at a work event, looking for her friend Gemma. One of her colleagues, Guy, keeps flirting with her despite her clear disinterest. Later, Kate finds another colleague and excitedly shares that she has discovered actor George Clooney is in London. Gemma even found out which party he's attending and managed to get VIP invites. Kate is eager to get an autograph, or maybe even something more. However, she soon learns that Gemma has already left. Disappointed but determined, she decides to go to the party alone. Struggling to find a taxi, she goes to withdraw cash for the subway. When she tries to buy a subway ticket, the machine doesn't accept large bills. A young homeless woman with a dog offers to sell her a ticket for less than £2, but Kate, feeling grateful, hands her £20. As she waits for the last train, Kate takes a few sips of her drink and leans back, accidentally falling asleep. When she wakes up, the platform is empty and the station's monitor is off. Attempting to leave, she finds the gates locked and her phone battery dead. Panic sets in as she realizes she's trapped. Just then, she hears a train approaching and rushes down to board, unaware that someone has just entered the back car. But relief is short-lived. The train stops suddenly, getting stuck before reaching the next station. Frustrated, Kate moves through the cars, banging on the motorman's door. Unbeknownst to her, the driver has just been attacked by something or someone. The lights flicker off, and Kate sees a man with a flashlight in the last car. Assuming he's a subway worker, she approaches, venting her frustration. But when he doesn't respond and starts moving toward her, she quickly lies, claiming her boyfriend is nearby. As she turns to run, she trips. To her surprise, the man turns out to be Guy. He laughs and turns on the lights, revealing that it was all a prank. But Kate soon realizes that Guy has been following her all along. Her fears are confirmed when he makes inappropriate advances, even unzipping his pants. In an attempt to humiliate him, she mocks his size. Enraged, Guy attacks her, throwing her to the ground. However, before he can do anything further, something suddenly drags him out of the car. His screams of pain echo through the tunnel, followed by eerie silence. Moments later, he resurfaces, barely alive, and manages to utter a chilling warning, "Run." Before Kate can react, he is violently pulled away again. Panicked, Kate runs through the train cars and hides in the back cabin. Moments later, she hears the attacker approaching and sees a shadow beneath the door. With no other choice, she exits through the back door, running along the tracks to the platform. Desperate, Kate tries to use the payphone, but she's still out of coins. Exhausted, she collapses on the ground, trying to catch her breath. Suddenly, she hears a creaking sound, startling her, but it's just the dog from earlier. Realizing the homeless woman might be nearby, Kate follows the dog through a small door, stumbling upon a restricted area where Jimmy and Mandy, a homeless couple, are sleeping. Jimmy, startled, wakes up. Mandy, under the influence of substances, remains unresponsive. Kate frantically explains what happened, but Jimmy seems indifferent. He even suggests that whoever attacked Guy might have done her a favor. He informs her that the only security guard is in the control room but explains there's an agreement. As long as the homeless don't bother the guard, he leaves them alone. Furious at Jimmy's indifference, Kate offers £50 for him to take her to the guard. This quickly changes his mind. As they leave, Mandy wakes up to find enormous rats swarming the area. Seeing her dog among them, she rushes to save him, but suddenly stops, her face frozen in terror, before letting out a blood-curdling scream. Meanwhile, Kate and Jimmy are too far away to hear. As they walk, Kate complains about his rambling. Before she can argue further, she hears someone calling her name. It's Guy, barely alive, sobbing and crawling along the tracks. Kate pleads with Jimmy to help him, but Jimmy refuses, still angry over what Guy did. Only after she offers another £50 does Jimmy reluctantly agree. But as he approaches, he realizes Guy is in terrible shape. The dog appears with bloodstains on its fur. Jimmy panics and runs off, searching for Mandy, only to find a trail of blood leading through a closed gate. He follows it but finds no sign of her. Meanwhile, Kate spots an emergency button and frantically presses it. In the control room, guard Roger, irritated by the interruption, answers. Kate, relieved, explains the situation, but Roger is skeptical. He asks if she's homeless, but when she waves to the security camera, he dismisses her concerns, insisting he sees no injured person. To prove him wrong, she drags Guy's lifeless body into view and screams at him. Roger, realizing the gravity of the situation, turns in his chair, only to find the control room overrun with rats. Before he can react, a disfigured figure grabs his head. Through the intercom, Kate hears his screams, confirming that this last hope is gone. Kate rushes to find Jimmy, hoping there's another guard at the next station. Jimmy, now high, eventually agrees to go with her. As Guy's lifeless body is dragged into the darkness, Kate and Jimmy take the right tunnel. Halfway through, Jimmy hears a noise. A train is coming. They sprint to a side platform, but Kate is horrified when it stops. Jimmy insists any driver would stop upon seeing people on the tracks, but Kate believes the murderer is on board. Determined to confront the attacker, Jimmy charges into the train. Kate hesitates, then follows. Just in time to see Jimmy fall into a trap, a pair of hands grab him. He struggles violently, but ultimately succumbs. In shock, Kate flees. Trying to escape, she slips into a sewer and stumbles upon Arthur's remains. Navigating through the filth, she reaches a staircase leading back to the station, arriving in what appears to be an archive room. Running through the rooms, searching for anyone, the lights suddenly go out. She still has her flashlight, but knows using it will reveal her position. She crouches behind a stack of boxes, holding her breath, only to illuminate the maniac's face right in front of her. Everything goes dark, and then we see the maniac entering a cell, where he begins dissecting one of his recent victims. Leaving the room, he heads to an area with several cages partially submerged in the sewer. Inside one of them, George is trapped. When poked, he grumbles that he's still alive. The maniac moves to the next cage and finds a dead person, which he takes upstairs. After he leaves, we see Kate trapped in one of the cages. She starts talking to George, who tells her to ignore the screams coming from upstairs. Suddenly, he gets startled by something touching his leg. Seeing that it's nothing serious, he calms down, but Kate notices something. If it wasn't there before, there must be a passage at the bottom of the bars. If George can squeeze out, he could reach the open cage. However, he admits he doesn't know how to swim and refuses to try. Kate takes a deep breath and dives while George watches anxiously. She resurfaces inside the adjacent cage, proving her theory. Excited, George says there's only one more left. But just as Kate dives again, the maniac appears at the door. George quickly pretends to be dead, doing his best not to react when poked. Kate manages to escape through the open cage and finds her shoe on the floor. As the murderer applies more force and George starts to scream, Kate shoves the heel of her shoe into his eye. As he writhes in pain, she unlocks George's cage. Despite his earlier cowardice, George proves to be a gentleman during their escape, lending Kate his jacket and covering her eyes when they come across a gruesome sight. They move through several passages and reach an abandoned hospital wing. But inside, there are only cribs, creepy toys, and shelves lined with preserved fetuses. In the next room, they find Mandy tied to a chair, covered in blood. Kate asks George to check if she's alive. He shakes her foot and assumes she's gone. Kate, devastated, nearly breaks down, blaming herself. She believes that if she hadn't pushed Jimmy away from Mandy, she would still be alive. George, fearing her cries will attract danger, tries to calm her down. Just then, Mandy begins to lift her head, straining to plead for help, but neither Kate nor George notices as they leave. They reach a door marked exit, but when they open it, they find a solid wall. George suddenly hears the metallic sound of the hook that poked him earlier. He knows the maniac is coming. With no time to waste, he kicks part of the wall down and tells Kate to hurry. As soon as they disappear, the maniac bursts through the grate with an animalistic screech. But before he gives chase, a faint sob distracts him. He turns back, deciding to play with Mandy a little longer. Pretending she is his patient, he fiddles with medical equipment and gently touches her face. Crying, she calls for Jimmy. He picks up a sharp tool and begins the gruesome surgery. Her scream is so loud that Kate hears it from the tunnel. She stops and asks George if Mandy was really dead. He hesitates, then insists she was, warning that he won't go back to check. The maniac finishes his work and heads to the crib room. On the shelf, a framed photo shows a doctor, and the horrendous man doesn't look much different. Meanwhile, George and Kate reach an abandoned subway station, where they find Ree trapped in a cage. From the state of the place, it's clear the murderer spends a lot of time there. Kate finds another framed photo of the same doctor, but this one also includes a young boy, clearly the maniac as a child. A sudden bang outside startles them. In a fit of rage, George begins smashing everything, screaming that he can't take it anymore. Kate begs him to stop, but he is completely unhinged. As he finally calms down and leans forward to catch his breath, the maniac appears behind him and grabs him. George throws him to the ground and starts punching him while Kate grabs a metal pipe. Just as she prepares to land a fatal blow, the maniac speaks for the first time, begging for mercy, promising to do anything to be spared. Kate hesitates, but then he changes his tone, daring her to kill him. Confused, she drops the pipe. In that moment of hesitation, he shoves George's head into a saw. Knowing she's next, Kate flees through the underground passages in despair. Seeing a moving train, hope ignites in her eyes. She sprints toward it, but before she can reach safety, the murderer knocks her down. He allows her to get up, just so he can hunt her again. Each time she rises, she is weaker, more injured, less agile. Finally, he loses interest in the chase, sitting in front of her and poking her face. Then Kate notices something, the hospital bracelet on his wrist. It has the name Craig, the same name from one of the cribs. She asks if that's his name. Craig responds with a punch, but the impact brings her closer to a sharp hook lying nearby. Seizing the opportunity, she stabs him in the neck. Seeing that the hook is attached to a chain, she has an idea. Detaching the other end from the wall, she drags Craig behind her like a dog on a leash and throws the chain into the high-voltage area. Nothing happens. Craig, still strong, lifts a barrel, ready to crush her. But just then, another train arrives, running over the chain, pulling it tighter around Craig's neck. He lets out a chilling shriek, collapses, and struggles to breathe. Kate watches his agony until he finally stops moving. With great effort, she stumbles along the tracks, eventually reaching a brightly lit platform. Realizing it's the same one where she was first trapped, she sinks to the ground in exhaustion. As morning breaks, commuters arrive, mistaking her for a homeless person. A well-dressed man drops some coins beside her. Kate stares at the money, then bursts into hysterical laughter. So that's it. Hope you enjoy the story. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more videos.